This report declares that the world has entered the era of global water bankruptcy.
January 2026, United Nations University declared
the era of global water bankruptcy.
Not a crisis. We're talking about a bankruptcy.
The word crisis suggests something temporary, a shock, an emergency.
Whatever is coming to replenish is not enough. There is a lot of lacking of really awareness. People is not aware of that. And then we're giving water for granted.
How did that journey actually begin?
I never, ever, even in my wildest dream, thought Saudi Arabia was an option. I was, 19 years old at that time? I thought it was a scam. I rejected it for 2 years.
2 years?
For 2 years. I got to know that it's actually real. It's not a scam. And that's how I gave the opportunity to say, okay, let's look at it.
What problem were you trying to solve when you came to Saudi?
I was shocked to see the land, the desert, right? People is washing cars with a lot of water. And I discovered a product in Germany that was to wash cars without using water, quite toxic at the time. And it's like, let's import it and bring it to Saudi Arabia. But the ecosystem was not ready. That's when I really started out of a mission conflict. That's when I struggled the most. I'm going to create the impact and I'm going to build one of the strongest startups from the university.
Do you think behavior matters more than technology when it comes to water, or is it more towards it's a combination?
I think it's a combination. Let's put the example of Saudi Arabia. Technology evolved. So we were doing distillation, boiling water to remove the salt with highly energy. Then we migrate to a more environmentally friendly one. Technology is still energy intensive, reverse osmosis, more efficient, but the behavior didn't migrate.
Most people don't realize this. The water we use, the products we clean with, and the future of sustainability are all connected in ways most people don't understand. Today we're speaking with Dr. Luisa Javier. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Hassan.
An environmental scientist with a PhD in water science from KAUST, and the founder of a company focused on sustainable cleaning solutions. She works at the intersection of science, sustainability, and real-world application, from water systems to the products people use every single day. And in this conversation, we're breaking that down in a way that actually makes sense. Because this is a very interesting topic to me, because we don't talk about this enough, I think. And I am so excited to talk to you today. So from your perspective as both a scientist and a founder, entrepreneur, leader, what are the biggest challenges the world is facing today when it comes to water and sustainability?
The biggest challenge is that people is unaware. In January 2026, United Nations University declared that we are in a water bankruptcy, not a crisis. Forget about the crisis. We're talking about a bankruptcy. So that means that whatever is coming to replenish is not enough. For me, that term, to incorporate it that strong, it's something that is not properly showcased or highlighted. People is not aware of that. And then we are giving water for granted, even in countries where water, is scarce, like Saudi Arabia, because we don't actually see the cost of it, in a day-to-day basis. Maybe the countries is the cost, but not the people. So I think there is a lot of lacking of really awareness that it's part of the journey and part of the mission that I feel I am, encouraged to spread the word to other people.
Interesting. That's a very interesting perspective of water and science together. One of the things that I really want to get to know is more about the beginnings of your journey, which is going back to the hero's journey that we all go through in life. You're originally from Mexico.
I am.
And now building and living in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
How did that journey actually begin? From the narrative of Saudi Arabia and also on a global level of what Saudi is, everyone has a different perception and perspective. And you lived it. And you have a company.
I do.
And you've been integrated with the culture and you have seen everything. So please tell us.
I always say that how I end up in Saudi Arabia, it was just meant to be. I never, ever, even in my wildest dream thought, Saudi Arabia is an option. But I was in one of the best universities doing my undergraduate studies in Mexico.
Mm.
And yeah, I've always been good at academia. So being with the highest GPA of engineering of my university. And I remember the day that I got the call, like a recruiting company or something like that, like, oh, you're one of the highest GPAs.
In Mexico.
In Mexico. Look, we're going to build, like one of the best universities in science and technology. And we want to invite you to apply. And it's going to be the first mixed gender university in the kingdom.
In Saudi Arabia.
In Saudi Arabia. And I was like, thank you so much. I was like, no way. I cannot, I was 19 years old at that time, 19, 20. It was 2 years before, like halfway of my actual college. So I never thought I never told anyone that I received that call. Honestly, I thought it was a scam. Then I started receiving emails and I was like, oh my God, these people is so insistent, but never thought about that.
How did they find you?
So yeah, like when the king got the vision of creating a university in 1,000 days, they actually went through different universities around the world and target us, find the highest GPAs of the brightest mind in the world.
So it's strategically planned to go to every single college.
I mean, the science
based on like science, I would say. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was targeted. And so I received a proposal. I rejected it for 2 years. 2 years? For 2 years.
24 months.
Yeah. I honestly thought it was not real. And then suddenly for an acquaintance, I got to be accepted not accepted. I got to know that it's actually real. It's not a scam. And he was like, Luisa, you should apply. I mean, I was looking for the opportunity. And that's how I gave the opportunity to say, okay, let's look at it. But because even 2 years before, when I would enter a website, it was all renders. There was no testimonials, and how I'm going to tell my parents at 19 or 20 years old, hey, mom, by the way, I'm going to Saudi Arabia, So it was just so hard. I mean, at that time, I have lived already in the USA and in France. So my parents were used to me being abroad, but not Saudi Arabia. So I remember even my mother coming to me, not to the interview, but at least where they were doing the interviews in the hotel in Mexico City, trying to validate that this was real. And it all started crystallizing, it was real. The vision of King Abdullah was real. And I was surprised, to be honest. At some point I said, like, wake me up, God, wake me up, because I thought it was not still real. And I remember the first time I came into Saudi Arabia was August 2009, Ramadan time. So, boom, right into the culture.
Wow. That's exactly where
two things, weather here in Jeddah, 40 plus 80 degrees of humidity. And then Ramadan, with zero background of what Islam is or what are the traditions here. So it was shocking, like the very first few weeks were shocking, especially also because the university was not finished exactly on time. So we were living in a hotel in Jeddah. So I would say that journey, when all start crystallizing, and then start looking that, I am one of the pioneers. I am one of the founding class in 15,000 kilometers away from home. It was just impressive. And the vision after 17 years, it's here, and
wow.
I'm so proud to say that I've been able to be one of the students that transformed that vision into actual application. And thank you so much really for the invitation, because for me, sharing that journey, it's what actually motivates me and moves me every day.
That's awesome. Well, this is why these conversations, I think it's really important because at the end of the day, everyone has a different narrative and perception, and sharing a real, true narrative that, someone that's coming from Mexico, because my mom is Spanish, also the culture and the understanding, the perspective, from that side, they don't see this side.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I feel I've been an ambassador, of the Saudi culture in Latin America, because a lot of people is like, what you're doing there, And then I reply to them, why you're not here? The opportunities that I've been given. For me, it was I would say some decisions in your life that are like, change your path completely, and accepting to do my master's degree definitely changed my life in a lifetime,
What was the support like when you landed in Saudi?
amazing. We were treated like for 6 months, we didn't have to pay any food. Like I'm talking about the restaurants, you know, like the brands and like the chains, the restaurant chains. With the power of our, you know, of our signature, we will get all the food. And we were so pampered. First generation, we were so blessed and so pampered.
How about the technology?
In which sense?
To science.
At the real beginning with KAUST, there was nothing, right? Like the mandate of KAUST was to create reputation. Because imagine it's an experiment. So I am a scientist, and suddenly King Abdullah thinks, let's build this cluster of science and technology, not college, just masters and PhD, and let's build it and bring 70 nationalities at that time. Right now we're 110. And let's bring this brightest mind into the middle of nowhere, you know, desert. And let's see what happens. The foundation was like, let's create reputation. So a lot of bright minds, you know, came. That was the first time I felt myself like, I'm not that intelligent as I thought, you know? Like being with the people here and then getting to see what, like, from different parts of the world, their brains, it was challenging. I would say for me, the master's was a challenging one, but I'm happy that I got to be, you know, into this journey because I got to meet not only the brightest, but also the most honorable souls that I have ever met here in the kingdom.
That's beautiful. Before, you know, I have this interesting question, but that as you're speaking is like, what is the narrative from outside, you know, based on that perspective? What did, when they think of, when we say Saudi Arabia, what do they think?
Unfortunately, it's terrorism. Right? And then they were thinking that something's going to happen to us. And yes, the country in 2009, it's a completely different country that 17 years later, right? Than 2026. So I never thought what I was going to expect here, maybe. That ignorance also helped me. You know, they did something that, for example, before landing in Saudi Arabia, they gave us like kind of a cultural course.
Interesting.
You know, for maybe 1 week to start, you know.
That's interesting.
You know, because it's true.
Yes.
In a country where everyone is mixed, where you never experience that part of like separating gender and many things that at that time Saudi Arabia was not allowing. Definitely we needed that, you know, to give us like some background on what to do, what not to do. But to be honest, KAUST is not only Saudi Arabia. KAUST is it's an experiment of an international community. What I have discovered here so far is the aspect of like one truth, you know, when you see people from all over the world, India, Australia, Mexico, UK, Saudis, all together. And it's a beautiful community, actually. The experiment has worked. Nationalities can work together even in the wildest and extreme conditions.
And as you're speaking, for the people that are listening, you know, I had the opportunity to actually look at KAUST and actually tour the whole platform. And it's been, I can't even fathom the technology, the way the buildings are designed, the way how the wind goes through the building, because there's natural air coming through the building, which is really cool. And, you know, what point did you decide to not just study this, but actually build a company around it? You told us what happened, but at what point you decided, you know what, I'm going to go beyond just studying this because of my GPA, but also actually build a company around it and solve a problem?
Just to give you a context of 2009, Saudi Arabia, women were not allowed to drive, you know. Of course, not creating like a company itself. Forget about women, like international for like investors or expats to create a company, right? At that time, a Saudi had to have 51% of, you know, any company that was created. So I would say that entrepreneurial mindset was set up by my university itself. It's the one that trains Tec de Monterrey, one of the like most important CEOs of the country. And they have a high school program, which I was accepted in, you know, to prepare you for university. And my first business plan was on high school. I hated that class. For me, it was like, I will never, ever, ever be an entrepreneur. Why? Because it was the first time that nobody provided me a framework of how to get an A or 100. Right? The market will judge me. Like
Of
we
course.
did a market fair or whatever where we presented our projects, and then the market will judge our grade. And for me, it was like, no. It's like for someone that likes to know exactly step by step what's coming next. I was just like, no, this is too much for me. Then we did again another business plan in college. I never thought, to be honest, that was embedded into my blood, into my DNA. So when I come from a really entrepreneurial engineering background, industrial engineering, and then translate myself here into a really scientific base, I'm talking about at that time, KAUST was not thinking of generating impact. They needed reputation. So they needed papers, they needed labs, they needed, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Real deep science. So for me, it was when I got into my first mission conflict, because I was like, okay, I said I would never be an entrepreneur, but also this deep science is not that I don't like it. I'm really good at it, even though it took me some time to catch up, with the system or the bright minds or so on. But it's like, what I'm going to do with this? So at that time, I remember, I was thinking, we're in the middle of the desert. People is washing cars with a lot of water. And I discovered a product in Germany that was to wash cars without using water, quite toxic at the time. And it's like, let's import it and bring it to Saudi Arabia. So the entrepreneurial mindset was there. Even I remember doing interviews here.
Seriously?
Back in 2009 with a paper, like a Mexican lady, like, yalla, yalla, habibi. So, but the ecosystem was not ready, the ecosystem was not ready. And that's when I really start, saying I was in a conflict because I was doing really great in my master's. I was tired and then I got a baby here,
Yes.
So I was kind of like, I cannot just be doing a PhD just for the sake of doing a PhD, even if I was offered to do a PhD immediately after my master's, So, and at that time, the country was not ready. That's why I decided to go back to Mexico to create my first company of washing cars without using water, like a car wash, which is the sister company of my current company, WAYAKIT. And that's how my entrepreneurial journey started, out of a mission conflict, I sometimes I'm saying so much about finding your mission, your why. That's when I struggled the most, I would say. Then 2 days ago, really, I discovered I read somewhere that sometimes you don't find your mission, but your mission finds you.
I love that. Can you say that again?
Yeah. You don't find your mission sometimes. Your mission finds you.
Okay. That's very interesting.
And if you think about my story of what I described, I never asked to be here. The mission found me, sorry. We just have to be sometimes open, to listen to those signals that we are receiving.
Yes.
So I go back to do my company in Mexico. And then again, they start asking me to come back to do a PhD. So I was meant to be here. I was meant to be in Saudi Arabia. And for me, that aspect of coming from this background, getting the science, and then my mission, crystallizing or finding me is what make me feel that I needed to create this for a purpose. But it took time. It was not something that, yes. And I think it's still building, I don't think it's something that I know.
Of course.
It's still building. But as time progresses, there are many indicators that corroborate that this is the way to go. Many. When I came back to do my PhD, actually, I said to my professor, if we can do one of the projects that I was thinking more into the entrepreneurial studies, for washing clothes without using water, then he said, no, let's focus on water desalination. My background, I had some base background from my master's of wastewater, but not water desalination.
What is water
desalination?
Yeah, what is that?
So most of the water in Saudi Arabia is actually desalinated from the sea, because I think 70% of the water in Saudi Arabia is desalinated from the sea. And therefore, he's an expert on that. And he asked me to start getting to know exactly. And for me, it's like, what is water desalination? I remember my first conference in Singapore.
That's interesting because I don't know, that word is not talked about a lot.
No.
What is the definition of that?
Yeah. You take water from the sea, pass it through pressure or heat.
Okay.
And then you remove like the salt, basically, so to convert it in drinking water.
Okay. So that's the water that basically we're drinking.
Yeah, that's the water that basically we're drinking, right? That we are using for wash, like everything. So I remember I was in Singapore and my first conference, and I couldn't understand a word what they were saying. And it's like, why I'm choosing this PhD? Why? Because the technical knowledge at that time was not clicking in my brain. Then suddenly, as time passed, I said, oh my God, I need to give up, because my PhD is actually of how to clean membranes, for water desalination. Like membranes is the tissue or the fabric or the material to push and press,
Interesting.
with pressure, and to make salt separate from water. And they get clogged by bacteria. And at the end, it's like, oh my God, I am ending in the same. Water and hygiene, So I was in Mexico thinking of how to wash cars without using water. Then I didn't understand why I'm doing the PhD. Some people will tell me, if you're building WAYAKIT, because when I came back, I was with the mindset of I'm going to create something. I didn't know exactly what. You
didn't know exactly what are you creating, but you knew you want to build something.
Yeah, that was my only condition to come back to Saudi. To Saudi, it's like I have this and I need to build on top of this. Okay. And I'm going to create the impact, and I'm going to build one of the strongest startups from the university.
Beautiful.
I went to present myself with the VP of innovation at that time. So for me, I just surrender, because I saw, okay, I'm in the mission of taking care of water through a hygiene practices. In what? Through cars, cleaning planes without or with less water, in water desalination, and who knows what's coming next.
That's beautiful.
But as you see, the mission is finding me over and over. So I just say, I understand. Mm-hmm.
I think this is a great way of looking at how do we sit in the uncomfortable of the unknown and letting things come to us rather than always going after them.
Definitely. So as I always said, I study industrial engineering with a minor in systems, and I have a really systemic way of thinking. And now I'm writing about that in a personal project for a sustainable systems lab. But I also believe that systems should be super flexible, right? And adapt and evolve, because at some point, the best thing is not to follow the system.
Because most plans are not even it's not, you didn't know that this is going to happen, and it's a complete different plan. Yeah. It's like you plan God plans. Yeah. All the time.
Yeah, you plan good plans. And I'm super chill with that. And before 2017, I was creating really controlled systems that, what I'm going to expect of my life, what I want to do. And then suddenly they broke up completely. It's like, okay, I need to be flexible. And that's how I start also, now creating all the things that I'm doing. Yes, reconciling that some structure needs to be done, but sometimes that non-structure is needed.
Of course.
To flourish.
Okay. Having a PhD and going through that journey, I'm glad that you shared that. That is very, very important for many, many of us leaders and entrepreneurs to have that kind of perspective. Thank you for sharing that. When you came to Saudi, what's the problem that you're solving in Saudi?
Even though I didn't feel water scarcity at that time, I was shocked to see the land, the desert, right? Coming from a super biodiverse country like Mexico, where you see, we are also a water-stressed country in some regions, but you see water everywhere in terms of the nature, the landscapes. But then coming to Saudi Arabia and seeing that people was not aware or caring as much as, you would think that, because it's scarce here, then people will care more. But that's not reality yet. So that's part also of my personal mission, how to spread the word, showing how important it is to take care of water, especially in Middle East.
In the Middle East, which we're going to get into it. Yeah. Okay. So now transitioning to Saudi as a platform for the audience to hear this, and also the clients that I have, and there's different leaders that I've worked with, and they don't have an idea of what Saudi as a platform has so many different opportunities. And this is where, from someone that lived and built a company and been a part of the journey and seen all the changes that's happening today. What made Saudi Arabia the place to build this company?
So many things. I would say it's the ecosystem as it's new, entrepreneurial ecosystem as it's new. There are many opportunities, less competition. And I also say that I've been a witness of Vision 2030, even before Vision 2030 was named. A witness of two visions, actually. One from King Abdullah to say, start opening up the country, to setting up like the foundations, I would say. And at that time you will think, of course, this is never going to be possible here. Then I came back and I saw the changes, and then Vision 2030 was launched, and it's like, oh my God, I need to be part of this. I remember a conversation with a friend that we were looking at the desert and desert and desert and desert. And then it's like, what do you see here? And he was like, nothing. It's like, no, I see a land of opportunities because everything is missing. So I would say that many companies around the world, there's so much that you could benefit and you could offer based on the expertise to a big market. Saudi Arabia is the biggest market in the Middle East, and also with less competitors around and many, many incentives. So I really encourage people to look at Middle East as a real emerging market.
What is Vision 2030?
So it's a vision launched in 2018. To really transform the kingdom, into, it has many pillars, actually. It has many pillars, from sustainable living, building infrastructure, becoming a manufacturing country, developing and localizing technologies and products, because most of the products here are imported, and diversifying the income, basically, from oil-based, right, technologies. So it's something that I started not when it was named the vision. As I said, the foundations were started before, having this hub of KAUST as one of like a hub of incubating research, deep science. I mean, if maybe the audience is not familiar, but in terms of research, King Abdullah University of Science and Technology over the world, over these 17 years, is top ranked in many citations. So in the academia world, is really well known. The research that has been released from here is top class. And now is the time to translate it.
Say that again, because I think that's it's time to translate it.
Translate it.
Which means?
Translate it into applications. We need fundamentalists, we need science, we need deep science, but we need also translators. I define myself as a translator.
I love that.
And why? As I said, like I'm coming from maybe some creative world and then getting to deep science. So I understand both worlds, business and science. And then sometimes they don't communicate well between each other. And it's like a fight, And I feel we need more translators, because a lot of scientists, they don't want to learn business, and they don't need to, all of them. But there has to be people that learn,
That's
both worlds.
Very interesting.
That.
Do you think what we're doing here is translation?
Not yet.
Not yet.
KAUST has changed its strategy to that translational part. And at the beginning, you cannot. When you don't have the foundations, you need to build those foundations. Okay. So now we are in the strategy of actually finding and translating that science. So that's the next stage, actually, for KAUST, where it's not only about building reputation. It's actually to prove how many projects are actually being implemented. And being successful in the sense. Okay. As an entrepreneur and as a leader, what was your experience like building in Saudi Arabia? Has been? As I said, the ecosystem flourishing, I would say, from 2015. Not flourishing, but like setting up the foundations. Yeah. Was it tough? It was tough. So 2015, I came back to give a conference here at KAUST. I was invited. So now the entrepreneurship center, for example, at KAUST was built already. So someone was already talking my language. But I tried to talk about like 2009, the country was not ready. So 2015, at least there was a language. But I remember one of our investors, and she was my professor at that time, and I would say one of my role models, Amal Dohan. At that time, she was professor in the entrepreneurship center, and she told us that she will give pizza to students in order for them to come to listen what entrepreneurship was about. Interesting. No one wants to come and listen. What is it? Wow. Right? Especially because KAUST, as I said, like the foundations was really academic. People were not talking this language. People were like, why should I care? I need to publish a paper. So it was challenging to attract talent, to getting to see if that could be a career path. For me, it's beautiful also to be part of that journey, where KAUST has incubators, and I think the second cohort.
Wow.
And now the 10th cohort, and now people from all over the world are applying, and even some people want to incubate here, spin in, not spin out. So it's interesting to see that the change in the ecosystem and the pace. For me, the pace. It's
speed.
Not the speed.
And entrepreneurs, we always talk about speed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the people outside of Saudi Arabia, what are people misunderstanding about the opportunities here?
So I would say that people don't think even
there is opportunities here. They don't think that, Saudi could possibly have an opportunity.
Exactly.
Why should I go to Saudi Arabia?
Why should I go to Saudi?
Why should I invest in Saudi? Or why should I open a company in Saudi?
Exactly. So people are not aware. These emerging markets, the strong emerging market that is Saudi Arabia. Before, maybe the country was not ready, but now they are really looking at how to protect foreign investment, And I think just people is not completely aware of that. So it's mostly of what media says. And I understand and I can relate to that, like the first call that I got, and I thought it was a scam. Right?
Yes.
So I think it's also important that now we have testimonials. Now we have people doing business. Now we have companies running here, So it's time to spread the word.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because that's a different narrative to understand what is the right narrative in the GCC area, because you are a case study of it and the whole journey of your story, which is really, really exciting and powerful. You're a woman entrepreneur, leader, built a business. This changes the whole perspective.
Of course.
I want to, really simplify the science, because I'm not a PhD guy. I'm more of an entrepreneur. To simplify the science for someone like myself, for someone with no specific understanding of science background, how would you explain what you actually do?
Okay, so we create biotech products, and then people will tell me, what is biotech? So it's like, let's start from that definition. Okay, so I always said that in the market right now, we have toxic cleaning products and we have organic products. Organic products is basically incorporating more sustainable products, mixing them together. And I always try to relate to, like grandmas used to, in Mexico, I remember they will do their own soaps to even wash clothes. They will do their own mixture. They were doing organic, sometimes formulation, sometimes organic aspects is that it was not researched what was happening inside that. And what we do, and that's why we say biotech, is like, because we take maybe some of those insights really and say why it was working. How can I enhance it? So for example, our fastest and safest disinfectant on the market that is used for cleaning airplanes is based off citric acid. And some people say, and what is your innovation? Yeah, citric acid forever has been a natural disinfectant. However, the contact time of citric acid takes around 10 minutes to disinfect. Okay. With some processes and encapsulation or nano-encapsulation with some soaps, we protect it to make it perform faster, only 30 seconds. The second fastest is alcohol, right? Which is 2 minutes. If you see, we managed to get like an organic formula, apply some biotech to perform better than the toxic one. That's our main purpose, how to translate all these, maybe some common knowledge, prove it with science, because we are a science-backed cleaning products, right?
Science-backed cleaning products.
Science-backed cleaning products. So how can we translate that into actual proof that it's working? And not only perform at the same time or at the same performance that current technologies, but outperform it at a reasonable cost. For us, cost is something that we put it into the agenda.
It's very important, the cost aspect of things. What would surprise people the most about water? And basically how water is produced or managed. Like, I honestly don't know how water is produced and how is it managed. What do people do when it comes to this topic?
So it all depends on where are you coming from, right? It's important to highlight how it's here. I said that the term desalination here, and it's a fancy term for removing the salt from water. And then, because there is no drinking water, or there is really few drinking water or underground water, I would say correctly, in Saudi Arabia. However, the technology has been developed thanks to the oil, That's true. That's true. You know, desalination it's feasible here also because of the prices of oil, you know. It's highly energy intensive. Okay. So we migrate from distillation plants where we were just evaporating tons amount of water to remove the salt into a technology that is called reverse osmosis. That is like, as I said, in a membrane and take a paper and roll it up, you know, like really. That's for people to understand.
Yes, absolutely. Please.
So reverse osmosis is like, and it actually feels like paper, a membrane, you know?
Okay.
And then water is pumped up into these different channels. You know, sorry, I think here. With a huge amount of pressure. The salt is separated and the clean water comes from here. From the inside. Okay? That's highly energy intensive. I'm talking about, and I'm not going to go into the kilowatts because people will not understand, but a glass of water here in Saudi Arabia costs 25 times more in terms of CO2.
Oh.
You know, it's in terms of energy than a glass in US or Mexico. However, the cost of water in Saudi Arabia, it's a tenth of what is in Mexico. People don't feel that cost. So I always said that for me, when I see water waste, I don't see the water, the liter per liter. I multiply it times 25 and I am putting some virtual reality glasses of CO2. You know? And instead of saying 1 liter, it's like I'm saying 25 tons of CO2 going into the atmosphere, blah, 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 blah. And then if you take into account that this paper or membranes gets clogged by bacteria, and every time you need more pressure to filter the same amount of water, this starts increasing up the cost, you know? So people is not aware of that, you know? It's an invisible cost.
Yeah, I mean,
that you just open up the tap, you have access to it.
Abundance,
right? Abundance subsidized by the oil industry, right?
Yes. That is simplifying the science. As simple as you can. I think I got educated in almost like 7 minutes. That was great. Awesome. Thank you. Why does this matter in everyday life? Like this thing that you're talking about, for whoever is listening to this, like why does this actually matter? Why is this important?
As I said, yes, there are some water scarce regions like all the Gulf and so on, but water is not like there is just a boundary. I know there are some regions with more and so on, but the implications of that you know, are going to be translated worldwide. You know, I can see it in Mexico. You know, before I don't remember when I was a kid, like really having shortages of water, but now they're facing it. And now I'm not anymore there. I'm here from 11 years already. So, but there are many, many places in Mexico. I was doing, I think 58% that lack access to potable water in Mexico, which for me, the number is like shocking, you know, coming from a different background. And that was when we were declaring water crisis. Now it's declared water bankruptcy. So we're not going back. We're not going backwards. We cannot replenish, you know, like everything that is happening is not being replenished by the whole water cycle. So we really need industries, first of all, to support. And I'm talking also industry like brown industries, you know, oil, water desalination and so on, how to make them greener, you know, to optimize that. Of course, bringing green technologies and of course the support of the community, you know, like the people around that. And when you talk to me, like, you know, if water is technological or, you know, behavioral, you need both, you know.
You need both of them.
You need both, yeah.
Okay. So this is a part of the transition that, you know, when we talk about simplifying it and talking about how for us day-to-day people and appreciate water and appreciate the science behind it because it takes so much work to get to this point.
It is.
Yeah. What are people using every day in their homes that they don't realize could be harmful or unsustainable?
I would say
this is part of the daily life, you know?
Life.
Yeah.
Daily life. And also here we have to put a cultural context, right?
Yes.
So daily life worldwide, definitely washing yourself or when you're bathing, but in terms of cleaning, it's the laundry aspect.
The laundry.
The laundry aspect. Laundry is the one that consumes the most.
Is this globally or is it specific?
It is. And my point is not only about the water. Right? It's about like the residues that come into that wastewater.
Okay.
So this is a funny story, because even though I'm a water expert, my son was around 5th grade, and he suddenly said, "Mom, I have to do a research with known people about micropollutants or microplastics, in the ocean." Honestly, because of all these campaigns that are like, you should not use like creams with these pebbles because they go into the sea and blah, blah, blah. I thought that, I don't know, that the main source of microplastics was some kind of that. It turns out it's laundry. It's laundry, the main contributor, because when we are washing our clothes, a lot of the fabrics now are synthetic or they have some polymers, and these polymers are released into wastewater. Wastewater treatment plants are not ready and they are going into the ocean.
Wow.
So it's not anymore about water wasted.
That's not about water anymore.
It's not about water wasted, So that's my point, that the implications of that waste goes beyond. And then
it's a compounding effect.
It's a compounding effect. So, and then that laundry being done USA, but here, every time you waste is 25 times more CO2 because you needed 25 times more energy to produce that water to wash clothes, right? So you see, like, people is just unaware of what's happening.
Very much so. I mean,
so this is global background. In Muslim countries, people had to do purification ritual, cleaning ritual, with water, before every prayer of the 5 prayers. I remember last year I had a conversation with a friend that met a professor in Oxford, which he's doing Islamic studies based with climate change, And he was shocked because lots of the studies says that people is consuming per wudu, per 1.8 billion Muslims, around 7 to 10 liters of water, right? 7 to 10. Okay. Prophet recommended to use 600 ml of how they used to measure things. And it's called al-mud. And
so this is how much water?
600 ml. Yeah, 600 ml. And we're using 10 times more. And then if you multiply 10 times more, in Saudi Arabia or Gulf countries, times 25, the CO2. So you see, my lenses are not seeing water. They are seeing the impact just to get that water.
I never knew anything about this before.
No. And a lot of people are unaware, It's really important to highlight that he was also encouraging that even if you have a flowing river, you should not just go for it. We are forgetting those ancient terms of
culture.
Yeah,
No, 100%. I did not know that that's how much water is used just for wudu, which I really want to get into, talking about the culture and water, based on wudu. How does that connect to modern sustainability?
Everywhere. In every sense, right? As I said, sustainability is not something that is outside, should be embedded. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. So when you are aware, like Islam also promotes the stewardship of earth. Many verses of the Quran. But we've forgotten. That doesn't matter if you have here like water. We will take just these.
That's the amount.
So this is the minimum viable that is recommended. That it will make the job. It will make the job. And sometimes for non-Muslims listeners, it's like I want you to translate this to anything in your daily life, right? Like sometimes we give for granted many things, meeting hours and so on. What is your al-mud? What is your minimum viable that is, you didn't know that you can actually complete the job and serve the purpose? Let's talk about sustainability, but it can be applied to time, many aspects.
Of course.
So yeah, that's part of what I'm inviting people to spread the word of the almotes. And find it in your life,
That's a really interesting thing. And I think you have an article about this, right?
I had an article.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it called?
The 0.6 liters. It's in my blog, like Azul Connections.
We'll add that link to the episode 100%, because I think it's very important for people to understand this, because it's a very different perspective that I didn't know. And talking to other people around me, I don't think the people around me know that, because this is a topic that was discussed many times that I didn't know. Are there any lessons from the culture or faith we are not applying today?
Definitely stewardship of earth. I think sustainability, the Holy Quran was there. It was there already. It is embedded. It is embedded. So why we forgot and take it as something, as I was telling at the beginning, like that adds, it will add me cost. It will add me time. oh, I need to think of that.
Mm.
Why don't we think it that is embedded within us? You know? And then do it as a lifestyle. So it was there. So I really think we just need to remember and go back to the basics.
The basics of that. And when you talk about, because in the beginning you talked about behavior and technology, do you think behavior matters more than technology when it comes to water, or is it more towards, it's a combination?
I think it's a combination. Let's put the example of Saudi Arabia, right? Technology evolved. So we were doing distillation, like boiling water to remove the salt, which is highly energy consuming. Then we migrate to a more environmentally friendly one technology, still energy intensive, reverse osmosis, more efficient, but the behavior didn't migrate, didn't change. People is not aware, people is not conscious, and therefore people is just consuming water because it's free, you know, it's really, the cost is non-existent. And as I said, I really think it has to be coupled. Also, if we all have our good intentions and we're still using the same technology, same, right? So it has to be coupled. I really believe that.
And this is going into the culture and water aspect of water and science together, which is really interesting because she said, how much water do we use for wudu?
So right now, between 7 and 10 liters. So 10 times more of this.
10 times more of that.
More of this. Per session, per person, multiplied by 1.98 billion Muslims.
Yeah.
And in regions of the Gulf, multiplied by 25 times to convert it to CO2.
Oh, God.
You know?
For the non-Muslims, can you explain what is wudu from your perspective?
So it's been a couple of years that I converted to Islam, actually. And for me, of course, wudu was what is and it's a beautiful ritual for purification to enter into a purified state before prayer, and where you have to wash in a sequence of steps, you know, like your hands, your nose, your face, your arms, even your feet, and your mouth. But every step has a purpose, right? And to me, that's when I start actually asking, because as a recently converted Muslim, it's like you're a 3-year-old. Like, why this? Why that? Why are you doing? And people didn't know. You know, I start asking questions like, so how much water should I put? Why? You know, asking questions. And then the answer came to me by mistake. I don't believe in coincidences. So I was really asking those type of questions. And then you never know, because it's a journey that I've been learning, still learning, you know, even though people is really unaware of that.
That's a very different narrative and perspective of talking about wudu from someone that is coming from Mexico and coming here and converting to Islam, explaining that really gives a different narrative. And thank you for sharing that. Now, the process of you building the company and transitioning, I want to know more about the company. I want to know what the company's doing. Tell us about your company. Yeah. What do you guys actually produce?
Our first product, you know, when I say our, is because I started this journey with my business partner from Colombia, Sandra Medina. She's also a scientist, and her background is more into the water, but the produced water from oil. And she's expert more in soaps or surfactants, you know, to control them and so on. So when we came up together to an innovation course, to be honest, we came to an innovation course here in KAUST. We were thinking of what project to develop. I was already having some ideas, but then we traveled to a conference to Amsterdam, and the airline lost our luggage. Okay. And that day we traveled like not one day before. We have to present that day at 3 p.m. It was morning. We couldn't buy, like, really, there was no time. You have a stain of coffee. You're smelly from the whole trip. You know, so we thought that there was no solution to wash your clothes while you are traveling, you know.
Interesting.
And that's how we end up creating our first product, that was this tiny little thing. It's a laundry spray that removes the stains and smells on the go.
So I can put it like on my toe.
Yeah.
Right. And this, if I had a stain right here, like that.
Exactly.
And so you got to put it this way, and then basically if I had a stain here.
Yeah. So you, with the cap, you will rub it.
With the cap?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You know,
so like, how do I rub it?
Yeah. Just like with the cap.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now I get it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you just rub it away. And it has also some macromolecules to encapsulate the volatile smell or bad smells, you know. So you can smell it, I think, right now.
Yes,
Yeah, you
yes.
can smell it. It's not perfume. Of course, it has also some perfume, but
Yes.
it's not only perfume, right?
Yeah, but it smells good.
Yeah. So we were doing a lot of research, even not research in the lab. Of course, yes, that came up at that time. But what I like it from here and talking about entrepreneurship is that they switch our mindset. For the first 6 months, imagine I'm in Mexico. I want to come back. I know the labs. I know how Saudi Arabia. I know KAUST. And then I arrive ready to go and jump into a lab. And then my professor Amal Dohan says, "Are you ready to relearn?" And it's like, "Yes, let me go to the lab." And she was like, "No, you're going to go to interview 100 travelers in their laundry room
Oh God.
to understand the customer, the customer itself." That's what we discovered, that laundry at home was not a pain. It was when you're traveling. And we couple it, and we couple it with the thing that happened to us. And it was interesting because at that time we were asking the people we interview, and they were like, "How you define a clean cloth?" Oh, as a scientist, sometimes you want to create the breakthrough. I was thinking of some biodesigning some bacteria and crazy, the requirements quite crazy. But then people will say, doesn't have visible stains, doesn't smell bad. And how does it smell good? I like the approach of customer discovery that I was taught only here, not before with my entrepreneurial background, that how you design and make the science, based on those customer discovery interviews, which I don't think a lot of scientists are doing that.
That is a very
Because I am coming from those teachings. Then I did that for my PhD. But most of PhD students or scientists, they are addressing the topic based on literature, whatever problem, design problem, when you want to implement it, doesn't make sense. That's why I said we need translators. And the translations starts by understanding your end user and understanding the design requirements. So I wanted to create something crazy. And at the end, it's a laundry spray, but with the 2 requirements: removes the stains and it smells on the go.
amazing.
We were ready. We won many awards. 2019, we were invited by Procter & Gamble because of the technology. And at that time, they were not that much caring about the product itself, but more about how we were doing the aspect of disinfection without any toxic compound, which is part of our research. And then COVID hit. There were no travelers. And our whole business plan was launched on a
small
spray, that was there. And
so it all started with this.
It all started with that, But that's when the entrepreneurial mindset has to come out.
And you said something before we had this conversation. It's like everything starts with an experience. Experiment.
Yeah.
It's not so much of the, this is going to happen if you treat it as an experiment.
Exactly. So when I started enjoying more entrepreneurship, I told you I was scared. I said no.
Yep.
And then even I struggled to really be an entrepreneur. But then when I discovered that it's also an experiment, that's why maybe I'm liking it.
Yes.
It's a social experiment. You never know how people is going to react. You really never know.
Okay. So now talking about the entrepreneurship, one aspect of the conversation from experimenting to, because like this conversation definitely applies to the world of AI, people that are starting new AI startups left and right, is experimenting and having that mindset with it, which then talks about how to start a company through just experimenting.
Exactly. Yeah. And you have to iterate as fast as you can. That's a challenge now, I remember the early stage of entrepreneurship when I did my first business plan in Mexico. We have to document even how the layout of the plant is going to be built. For a year, you have to be, thinking of all these details. Come on, I'm just building my plant after 4 or 5 years, like a real plant.
Yes.
Before that, you have to fail fast, test the market, test if someone is going to buy it at that price. But it was not taught like that way, that iteration, those experiments should speed up. And the challenge for entrepreneurs is to get into that wave, how to speed up those experiments. Now we also have some technologies that is going to help us test better.
Of course.
That's also true.
Of course.
At a lower cost. We really need to move into that experimental mindset and not take it personal, because when you're building something from your heart, at some point I'm starting to treat every video I do as my bacteria.
That's an interesting point. Start every piece of content as a bacteria.
Yeah, my bacteria will grow up. I will not know what will happen. I will just pray, please, don't reproduce so fast. And then from there, I will start navigating what's coming next.
What worked, what
I
didn't?
will not get so attached. So the same I'm applying, in terms of what I am building. It's like, I don't know what people will react. Just put it as fast as you can with the minimum viable option and test it. And from there, look at the experiments, look at the data, and from then you recalibrate, right?
Based on this product, you have created a lot of other products.
Yeah. So when COVID hit, we didn't have a company.
So company done. Okay.
I mean, we didn't have someone to sell. But as I said, the science saved us. Why? Because my expertise during the water salination was bacteria control in these membranes that I explained before. And we knew that we had something in that product that was killing bacteria fast because it was designed for sweat. So we studied the whole sweat cycle, right?
Wow.
Bacteria,
The sweat cycle.
The sweat cycle.
I love that. That's the sweat cycle.
There is a sweat cycle, right? There is a sweat cycle. And how, you have bacteria, you have food, the grease, and then all these volatile compounds. So from that background, it's like, maybe we can create a disinfectant. Of course, this formula is too premium. And whatever we did in 2-3 years for this or 2 years for that, we have to condense in 2 months.
Wow. Okay.
We sent to test our formulation. To be honest, we thought it was going to be the same as whatever was on the market. And then we were surprised that we were one of the few to have that aspect of 30 seconds and removing 99.999% of bacteria. Why each 9 is important? Because it's a level of disinfection. So a lot of the disinfectants normally they achieve like 3 nines, which, so, and then of course it kills viruses and different types of microorganisms.
And where are your products being used today?
Mostly aviation. So we are strong in the aviation industry, not only in Saudi Arabia, in Mexico, we have big airlines like
Mashallah.
National Airlines, American Airlines, and here in Saudi, of course, Saudi National Airlines. And then we're doing even now specialized maintenance products, and based off new solvents, natural solvents that they need, like degreasers. So that's part of what is coming next. However, last year we started releasing it to the public. Of course, we have other industry facility management, but a lot of people were asking, and where can I buy it?
Interesting.
And last year we launched our e-commerce platform where we have like maybe 20 type of products, like from, for homes, all the sustainable living line for cars, we go back to basics, right?
Yes.
I started with the idea of how to wash cars without using water, and now pets. It's a growing market,
Wow.
And they are quite sensitive for many of the products that are there, and how to even clean them with the minimum amount of water.
Talking about, products that are clean and not having a lot of stuff in it, when we talk about clean products, pricing comes into place. Is it more expensive?
Right now, we did a whole re-engineering of our prices to prove that sustainability doesn't come with a premium price. We wanted to really be at competitive prices, because we really want people to start changing that mindset,
100%.
And of course, that also involves research for us to how to maybe sometimes localize some raw materials to make them, affordable. But as I said, the main value proposition of WAYAKIT is that thanks to this scientific background, we're able to engineer, based on the constraints of of the places where we are.
Yes, because we, as I talked to, because I spoke to my aunts and a few of my family members also. There's a lot of cleaning products that are very expensive because it's green and so on and so forth. And you're saying that now with the science that the cost is going to be almost the same.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same. It's a matter of really spreading the word, because especially in Saudi, I know in US there are plenty of these products, plenty of them. Same in Mexico. I'm not quite sure how many biotechs. Yeah, so it's a difference.
That's different.
But organic, definitely a lot.
What's the difference?
As I said, organic is just combining natural products together. Biotech is changing the structure or of a natural ingredient to perform better. So that's what we are doing.
That is
so. Understanding the science behind to that, of how those molecules integrate and then to perform better, to what we should combine them with, how to protect sometimes one specific molecule so it can actually perform.
Well, congratulations on that. That's a very, very, very interesting topic that we don't talk about every single day. What does it take to bring something like this from science into the market? In the simple way of you saying it, because, people think of science.
I'm really, really thankful with that innovation course here at KAUST. Because if you ask me what would be that innovation course, it was not entrepreneurship course. It was as if I'm learning a new language. That's when I started to learn how to translate, So I remember at that time, the university was not in the position that is now. Now there is even a master's in innovation and entrepreneurship in KAUST. At that time was really science-based. And when you cross, like we are now in the entrepreneurial area, but when you cross to the campus, it's like super academic, super formal. It's like if it was two universities, right? So I remember that for the presentations of that time, the VP came and then he said, shall we incorporate this type of courses like to all students? And I was like, yes, please, because it's not about being an entrepreneur, it's even people who wants to go into foundational science, how to understand the customer. Even if you sell it, even if it's internal, you're serving someone. Your science is serving someone. And understanding those needs so you can engineer based on those needs or create or design. But that's usually not the approach that we are being taught as a scientist.
Who is your customer?
Our customer are companies that really want to find a way of doing a day-to-day routine cleaning, cost efficient and incorporated sustainability. And we can call airlines, facility management, and translating industry can be homes also.
And again, as the audience is listening to this, I want to make this a very important point that your product is actually working with really big companies.
It is.
In the aviation side. From Saudi Airlines, the American Airlines.
Yeah.
So it's really, really cool to see a company that has transitioned from Mexico and building there to transitioning in Saudi and becoming successful, and not just actually also working with a lot of companies and making an impact. So thank you for doing that. What has it been like building and leading a company in this space, Saudi Arabia?
In this space. So interesting, Hassan, is that Saudi Arabia, it's in the top 5. Like I think last year it was still in top 4 of female entrepreneurship in the world. You will never expect that.
Of course.
However, as I said, it was not that much about this and female entrepreneurial aspect, but the ecosystem that was not yet built in the kingdom. It's a different story when I'm talking to you about developing a company into the STEM sector, science, technology, environment, math, to the STEM sector. That's a different story, because when we created the company, like setting it up, there are like some specific branches for women and they treat you really well. So setting up the company, I don't feel it differs from a man. There are even some incentives for women. However, trying to enter a super male dominated sector, aviation. Aviation.
Exactly.
At that time, now there are more, but 0 women. And we were, my partner and I going to the aircraft, jumping into the aircraft with all men. And they were like, what these girls are going to teach us?
Okay. So that's when the ego comes in place.
Course,
yes.
So that aspect was the challenging part. But I'm so thankful that they were humble enough to make our lives miserable, but give us an opportunity. Because we knew afterwards, now they are our clients, now we knew that's like, which other tests are going to put these girls to prove?
It's amazing. That's so cool.
But the main thing we have, it's the aspect of the science backed. So we were able to, you want this test? Here's the test. You want the flammability test I have here in KAUST the connection with Boeing. They can do the test, or, at that level of how to, integrate different teams, different certifications. You have no idea how much a product like this has to go into the certification aspect for getting into an aircraft,
Yeah. Behind this, there's so much depth of context.
Yeah. They try everything as you can imagine. If it damaged here, if it changes the flammability of the fabric, everything that you can imagine, they're going to test to your product. So for me, I feel so proud that we entered that sector in Saudi Arabia. So, and I talk about Amal Dohan as one of my role models, but another role model for me is Princess Rima, the Saudi ambassador in US. Recently, she was in a podcast and she said, you cannot be what you don't see.
You can't be
what you don't see.
What you don't see.
I'm so happy to be one of those first women that are really looking at it's possible to be a female entrepreneur in STEM industries, right? It is possible. You just need to have the courage enough, to do it. The country is ready. Mm-hmm. The culture is it's more red than before, definitely. Mm-hmm. Still, there are some struggles, but I wouldn't think it's even related to Saudi Arabia. Aviation in Mexico, it's similar challenge, right? There are some sectors that are actually male dominated that is not related exactly to the country. For me, I got to meet Princess Rima in the conference last year. And then I participated in a panel discussion in COVID, actually, with her and the Secretary of Commerce at that time. And those persons are really the ones that are encouraging me to say, I want to be one of the first that people can see and can relate. I'm happy because at least some people that have come to KAUST is I read your article, I follow you this, and now I got the courage to follow your steps. That's my mission, Hassan. Really, it connects me to, why my mission found me.
Yes.
It connects me back to say how everything is integrating, And for me, that's part of why I'm here. Why makes me believe this is the best place to be, and why, regardless of what is happening, keeps me going.
You feel the environment today is changing for women in science?
Definitely. At least in KAUST, I think 45% that are female, higher than even I think in Mexico, for this university.
What would you tell the other women that are listening to this, other leaders, what would you tell them about Saudi and building a company, something similar to what you're doing here today?
Believe it. If you want to give it a try, there's way. Now there is many companies supporting, that soft landing. It still is a constant changing environment. I would say it's not that you cannot do it by yourself, but you have to also build your community, your partners, of the people that will also tell you about this changing environment, because that's also true.
Of course.
It's constantly changing. So rules are not still set up. You have to be okay to be inflexible. That's also, it's okay that rules are still adapting. I'm okay with that, as I said. So you have to be also open to that changing environment.
100%. 100%. Talking about the opportunity in the GCC area here, where do you see the biggest opportunities in Saudi? You could talk about sustainability if you want, but I mean, in general, because the audience is wide between Saudi Arabia and the United States, what is the opportunity in the GCC area? Based on your perspective and narrative.
Yeah, my perspective is definitely manufacturing.
Okay.
Manufacturing, tourism, and everything that is related to healthcare, medtech.
Interesting. Okay. That is a very, very good you talked about three main things. Yeah, that's pretty good. Cool. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Because that's again, data points and doing probably 100 interviews. It's the same aspect of the experiment, right? If we look 5 to 10 years ahead, what changes in how we use water in everyday products? 5 to 10 years ahead, which is, I know, it's a little bit scary, but I would love to hear from you.
I really hope my dream, dream and why I'm advocating. I don't like to advocate I advocate for something that I know, that I study and that I handle it, right? But my dream is that people is at least more conscious in their daily lives. That, as I said, that imagine that we can distribute the same lenses that I have.
Of course. Yes.
And then we can give it to most people, and then they can see, and then even though they are not feeling it in their bill, they can actually feel it and then be more conscious about that, right? And then these people might translate that into the industries, right? Because that's another discussion.
Of course.
Definitely, it's not only about the consumer. Industries needs to migrate also into that mindset.
What's the misunderstanding here?
Definitely the biggest impact will be, if you, as I said, like desalination, it's a brown technology because it's energy intensive. It's not a green technology. Now there are greener ways of desalinating, and here there is like really great research going on to discover those type of technologies. However, like the standard is energy intensive. And when you really look at a lot of people now in the sustainability aspect, just because it's fashion and whatever, it's like, oh, let's build a green technology. But we are forgetting how to make greener the brown industries, which if you compare the impact of making, that brown industry greener, it will be way more than the green technology itself.
Interesting.
So just because it's not fancy, then people is not highlighting that aspect. So yeah, my PhD, if you want to say it, could be boring because I was just looking at how to make more efficient desalination by cleaning in a more environmental friendly way the membranes. But it doesn't sound as exotic as I am building like a, green desalination plant.
Yes.
So even though I don't have a data point to validate that, but even though maybe at the end, the impact could be quite similar. So the mindset of the people operating should change. And it's not only about the community. Well, so the people is also handling that technology and that mindset. And unfortunately, to be honest, not all the towns is into that direction. I have struggled a lot because some of leaders they are just not taking into account the environment component at all. Unless if the narrative, and that's what we're trying to do with WAYAKIT, unless the narrative is like, I'm not selling you sustainability, I'm selling you a cost-efficient technology. And then it's like,
That's where it's more interesting.
Yeah, but it's going to save you X amount of, reals, dollars, whatever per year. Then it's like, the narrative changes. And I think also for sustainability experts, it's also customer discovery. So sustainability has three components: people, planet, profit, and people think it's only planet. And maybe that narrative in Scandinavian countries, European countries resonates. But I would say in Latin America and Middle East, it doesn't.
It doesn't. Where does that come from? People, planet, profit.
So it's the triple P of sustainability. Okay. Point is that it's usually standard, or prosperity, Some people don't say profit, but prosperity. Prosperity. So my point is that people is social. That's why when we started this, what we don't know is it's not the planet. The planet involves also people, right? And then it has to be sustainable. And when we talk about sustainable, it has to,
of course, it goes back to
money also, right? So
intentions.
We are forgetting that also. When we are selling the narrative, we are forgetting the prosperity aspect, which is also really important to consider.
Having consciousness and intentions top of mind. If there's one thing you wish more people understood about water, sustainability, or even the products they use every day, what would that be?
So I will go with water because to be honest, most of cleaning products are water-based, right? So also,
I love how you...
So in the saving aspect, definitely is the word bankruptcy. That should change your lenses, translate that depending on the part of the world that you are, because I'm talking about, America, but not all US. Like there are some water stressed regions in USA that are also facing these issues, So take those lenses, right? And take the lenses of like the water bankruptcy lenses. Translate that into what does it take to take this water from this product, from what I'm consuming. And see, as I said, it's not like my little bottle. Multiply by 25, we will have a huge bottle like that if we translate that into CO2.
Thank you so much for sharing that. As we end the episode and the conversation that we're having, before I conclude, what last words would you like to tell the audience? Anything top of conscious?
I would say that
let me ask you this question better. Is there a question that I have not asked you?
A question that you haven't asked me. A question that you haven't asked me. No, I think you covered all.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would go to one last takeaway.
Yes.
If you ask me, a takeaway definitely is maybe this is something new that you never understood what it was.
Yes, I don't.
Think of the Almud test coming from ancient times, 1400 years ago.
1400 years ago.
1400 years ago. And think it in your daily life, the resources, not talking only about water, that you're using resources. Think if there is any hidden minimum viable that you can operate and still achieve the same result. This will help us migrate our mindset. And at the end, the benefits, we will see it, in a day-to-day basis. Right now, we're talking that the cost here is almost invisible, but in US or Europe, the cost of water is not exactly the same as here.
Of course
right?
not, yeah.
So you can see it more, and that's why people also is more conscious, right? So think of the minimum viable, question yourself. And now, after doing this article, I just go back, am I operating at Almud? This is the test, Am I really, or I'm just thinking this is the minimum viable, but it actually isn't. I don't know, an entrepreneur can maybe say, this is the minimum packaging that I could operate, but maybe you can go even 50% below and still achieve the same results with your customer.
Of course.
Meeting hours, sometimes we are saying, you just go to meeting to meeting, but can I achieve the same results with 45 minutes meeting the whole week? Challenge yourself. Think of this.
I love that. For me, I'm getting is what the narrative of how am I able to compress time and get more output, or it's more how do I respect time, or like do I have enough integrity with the things that I have in my life based on the daily stuff that I do.
Exactly. So, and then not only the time, the resources.
Oh, that's
my point, that take those lenses, taking from the water bankruptcy term and take those and then think if this is a minimal viable option. Can I operate? Can I go lower? Challenge yourself. And I really think with that mindset, we will be able to be more efficient in our day to day. And then you see the sustainability component is embedded already.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that point. As we conclude, this is one of the conversations that basically shows us how much is happening behind the scenes, things we don't see, the narratives that we don't see that impact all of us every single day. And I think the biggest takeaway is for me here, and based on the conversation that we had with Dr. Luisa, sustainability isn't just about the policy. It's about science, behavior, and the choices we make daily. But not just that, it's also the resources. The narrative of day-to-day life that we don't know what we don't know. And by having the context and the right narratives, we're able to look at things from a different perspective and have a better way of understanding our lives moving forward. I appreciate for you being a part of the episode.
Thank you so much.
And having this conversation. And thank you.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you.
Thank you.